Like, honestly, I'm gonna say this. Judy Alvarez would be James Cameron if this weren't a dystopia.
Always dreamed of seeing my face on a show bill.
Call me old-fashioned. So yeah.
Guess I'd be a braindance star.
There's kind of like the death of film happened because of the Braindance. It's really interesting to think about. Yeah, so the Bushido films are kind of the last films that we really see being like hailed as like a cinematic event, and even some of the coverage of it talks about it kind of getting worse and not being very good. In my mind, I always think about Bushido being sort of the Fast and the Furious of this world, but Bushido 10, which ended up being the final Bushido, that came out prior to Johnny going into Arasaka Tower in 2023. And I never thought about maybe it being so discussed in this in-world situation the way that it is. I mean, outside of it, that's entertaining and it's easy lore building and it's something for CDPR to do, but this really gives it a perspective. Those might have been like the last big Hollywood productions, because anyone who thinks about being an actor now thinks about it purely in the context of braindancing. There are a couple of things you can do in this game where if you're out in the desert, you stumble over gigs and you investigate like abandoned sets of people trying to film independent film, but there's an implication there that it gets very complicated, it gets very tangled. One of them, you find a truck and it's like it's being funded just as an advertisement for this truck, and the guy's trying to make it be a movie and it doesn't work out, and gangs storm the set and kill everyone. It's like the death of art. And you have someone here who maybe would have been an actor, but instead they're in this militarized situation. They're out of it. They keep getting pulled back into it. That inclination that they have for creativity, for filling other identities, it's being used as a tool of Noosa. It's being used as a tool of imperialism. There's no art left. There is only brain dance. And for the majority of people who do brain dance, it's exploitative on a level that even film now isn't. It's highly sexualized. We've done kind of the Moth's Head with Evelyn. We've seen Judy have all of her notes about the more experimental brain dance that she wants to do, but she really isn't able to. Judy's job as someone who wants to be maybe a director and an editor and who loves genuinely the tech behind it. Like, honestly, I'm going to say this. Judy Alvarez would be James Cameron if this weren't a dystopia. Within dystopia is sort of something that we're seeing right now. People no longer care about making a good movie or a good TV show. There's no such thing as prestige television anymore. And David Zaslav acquiring HBO Max and turning it into what he has, I think, is a really big indication of how the people who are in charge of these things, because they're not creatives, are thinking about it. If you think about how bad Rings of Power is, not in the racism, misogyny way, that's not what I mean, but you think about how bad Rings of Power is. You think about how bad the Five Nights at Freddy's movie was. Think about how hollow, ultimately what a failure, in my opinion, what a failure The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, this latest Hunger Games movie, is compared to how good that original Hunger Games trilogy is. People are no longer making movies. They are no longer making television. They are no longer telling stories. The goal now is to make content. It doesn't matter that Five Nights at Freddy's was terrible. It doesn't matter that The Rings of Power is awful and so many directions. Ultimately, that doesn't matter because stan accounts and fan accounts will still use it to make content. It'll still get pushed through gift sets on Tumblr. It'll still get pushed through like fan cam edits. The discourse around it, people now know, studios now know, if they make a movie that's really, really shitty, it pisses off enough racists and misogynists, people who are against the racists and misogynists, instead of actually dismantling racism and misogyny, what they start doing is they start attaching to the film or the TV show, sort of like prove their moral character. You can make something that is god awful, you will get free promotion for it, and people will defend it like it is a necessary and transformative piece of art, because you can rely on the fact that the alt-right is going to have a problem with it in the dumbest way possible. So I think it's really interesting that the last great films in the world of Cyberpunk 2077 are Fast and the Furious. Fast and the Furious is really fun. I would never say that Fast and the Furious isn't important. I think it says a lot, and to an extent has done some good things for the playing field of action films, but it's garbage. Yeah, this provides a whole new perspective. If you aren't a big nerd about things like that, that was really long, and thank you for getting through it. But I have a lot of feelings. Yeah, what's your dream role?
Got any dream roles?
Norma Desmond, Sunset Boulevard. Guessing that doesn't ring any bells.
No, but tell me.